Helen Carter picked up a paintbrush for the first time when she was 70 years old, at the Senior Day program. Her daughter had enrolled her in that spring. Her daughter Susan had brought her to the center in March. Helen had left the stove on twice, missed 3 consecutive days of medication, and gotten turned around on a walk to the grocery store. She had made 100 times. The doctor said it looked like early mild cognitive impairment. Susan could not bring her mother home right away. She had a husband, 2 kids, and no spare room. The day program was the next best option. Seniors came in on weekdays, ate together, and did activities. Helen said she did not want to go. She said she was not the kind of person who went to those places. Susan talked her into it gently. "Mom, there are people your age there. They make lunch. You won't be sitting alone all day." On Tuesdays the program offered an art class. The instructor was a young woman in her late 20s, who taught watercolor, colored pencil, and collage. Most of the seniors painted flowers or their favorite foods. The instructor set a sheet of white paper and a small set of watercolors in front of Helen. "Just paint something from spring," she said. "Whatever feels right." Helen looked at the paper for a while. She opened the paint cups one at a time. She dipped the brush in water. Then she started painting. The instructor came back around 15 minutes later and stopped walking. On the paper in front of Helen was a branch of dogwood flowers. The petals had depth and variation. The stems were alive. A soft wash of hills in the background created distance that a beginner simply does not know how to make. The instructor said carefully, "Have you studied art before?" Helen set down the brush. No. The instructor could not make that answer fit what she was looking at. That evening when Susan came to pick Helen up, the instructor pulled her aside and showed her the painting. Susan stood looking at it for a long moment. "My mother painted this? I was watching her the whole time. She had one explanation of the materials and then she did this." In the car on the way home Susan asked, "Mom, have you ever painted before?" Helen looked out the window and said simply, "A long time ago." A little. Susan did not know then how long ago that long time ago really was. "Have you ever carried a dream you stopped believing in?" Helen had been preparing for art school at 18. She grew up in a small town in western Kentucky and drove 40 minutes to the nearest art supply store for paint and paper. Her high school teacher told her she had something real, told her she should apply to programs in New York and Chicago. Helen painted before school, after school, and by lamplight before bed. That fall her father had an accident. A bad fall from a ladder at the farm put him out of work for months. Her older brother's college tuition was already a stretch. Her mother sat down with her one evening and said quietly, "Helen, honey, the art is going to have to wait a little while." A little while. That little while became 52 years. Helen had not touched a brush since she was 18. She married, raised children, kept house, lost her husband, and lived alone. Whether she had ever thought about picking it back up, she honestly could not say anymore. Somewhere along the way she had stopped thinking of it as a thing she had put down. She had simply forgotten it had ever been hers. And then at 70, in front of a sheet of paper, at a senior day program, her hands remembered. The following Tuesday, the instructor set out better paper and fresh paints before Helen arrived. Helen painted for 2 hours straight. The other seniors drifted over one by one to watch. The woman beside her said, "Honey, are you a professional?" Helen smiled and said, "No." The instructor photographed the painting and posted it to the center's social media page with a short caption about a 70-year-old participant. 3 days later the post was being shared. A week later tens of thousands of people had seen it. Susan started getting calls. Journalists, gallery contacts, a local television producer. She did not tell her mother. She was not sure Helen would want the attention, or what would happen if it did not go anywhere. Then one evening Susan was going through a box of her mother's old things stored in the basement, and found a brittle cardboard box pushed into the back corner. The tape sealing it had darkened and stiffened with age. Someone had sealed it a very long time ago. Susan peeled the tape back. Inside were several sketchbooks. The covers had gone yellow. She opened the first one. Pencil drawings. A face. The lines were precise and unhurried. Next page. A tree. Next page. A pair of hands. Next page. A ceramic jar and a folded cloth. On the inside cover in small neat handwriting was a date. August 1972. The summer Helen was 18. Susan could not stop turning pages. One after another, her hands would not slow down. Her breathing tightened. Her mother had made all of this, and had never once said a word about it. Never mentioned that it existed. Never said this is something I wanted. Not once. Susan sat on the basement floor and cried holding the sketchbook. When she stopped, she went upstairs to her mother's room. Helen was sitting on the edge of the bed watching television. Susan held out the sketchbook. "Mom, I found this." Helen's face changed the moment she saw it. "Where did you find that?" "The basement." Helen took it. She opened to the first page slowly. She looked at it for a long time without speaking. Susan asked, "Mom, why did you stop? You were so good." Helen said quietly, "It was supposed to be just a little while. It just went on a little longer than I thought." Susan did not ask anything else. 2 months later, Helen's follow-up results came back. The original mild cognitive impairment diagnosis needed to be revisited. Further testing showed her cognitive function was actually above average for her age group. The symptoms had come from depression and chronic poor sleep. Her doctor said, "If you found something you love doing, keep doing it. That's the best medicine I can prescribe." Susan cried in the hospital parking lot. She was glad about the diagnosis. But she cried for something older than the diagnosis. She cried for 52 years of mornings without a paintbrush. That autumn, a small regional arts foundation invited Helen to participate in a group show. 12 of her watercolors went up on a white wall. Dogwood branches, an old barn, a clothesline in early morning light. A pair of work boots on a porch. No titles. The paintings spoke for themselves. On opening night, Susan walked in holding her mother's hand. Helen moved slowly along the wall in front of her own work. She did not say anything. She stopped briefly in front of each painting. At the last one, she stopped longer. The subject was the ceramic jar and folded cloth from the 1972 sketchbook. She had taken the pencil, drawing from 52 years ago, and painted it in watercolor. Across half a century, the same hands had returned to the same image and finished what they started. Susan squeezed her mother's hand hard. Helen looked at the painting and said softly, "I just needed a little longer break than I planned." That sentence stayed in the room a long time. If you have a dream you set down somewhere and told yourself you would come back to, maybe it is still there waiting. The hands do not forget. New stories like this one every week on this channel. Please subscribe so you never miss the next one.